It's been a long year with lots of ups and downs.
2025 has been a bit of an up and down year for the horror genre. Oh sure, we've had some high quality films like Sinners and Bring Her Back, but then we've had the mid films like I Know What You Did Last Summer or The Wolfman, and we've had the bad films as well like Megan 2. Now, the most recent entry into the horror genre was released this past weekend. That movie is Weapons. Now, I will admit, I've really been looking forward to this one. I saw the trailer many months ago, and I was very intrigued. But I mean, how many times have we seen a good trailer and then gotten a shit movie? More than we can count. So, what do we have here? Is Weapons a good horror movie? Up there with the best of the year? Or is this just another mid or even bad film where the trailer makes us think we're getting good when really we're getting crap? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot for the film Weapons.
Let's talk.
So we find ourselves in the small town of Maybrook, Pennsylvania. And one day at 2:17 a.m. precisely, 17 children from the same classroom simultaneously leave their homes and vanish. Their teacher, Justine Gandy, arrives to school only to find one student, Alex Lilly, present. Now the community is left in tatters. They're questioning who or what is behind this disappearance, and they have zoned in on Justine, who they feel had a hand in the disappearance of their children.
Yeah, that's creepy. That's creepy.
So what works in this film? Well, unlike some other horror movies, this movie actually has a pretty strong cast. It's filled with performers you're going to recognize. Julia Gardner plays Miss Gandy. She was recently in the Fantastic Four. She's strong here. Her character is clearly affected by what has happened, but she's not exactly the best of persons, so the suspicion does fall on her. She does a good job of conveying the caring but flawed and traumatized character. Josh Brolin plays Archer Graff. He's the father of one of the missing children, and he plays in the normal gruff Josh Brolin style that we've come to know so well. But in this case, it works well because he's a father whose child has gone missing and has been missing many months, so the style suits the character. Also, kudos to young 9-year-old actor Carrie Christopher, who plays Alex. Now, children actors, especially this young, if they're not strong, can really drag a film down, but I'll give him credit. He puts on a really good performance here. Alex is a child who is not only traumatized, but seems to know more than he's letting on about what has happened. I also absolutely loved how the plot was presented. We are given the initial setup of what happens, and then we are presented with the story from the viewpoint of several characters throughout the town, sometimes re-showing things we've already seen, but from their perspective. The movie goes along almost like a chapter story. And everything is kind of pulled together towards the end where we get our reveal and our resolution. I was really drawn in by the way it was presented. And it really keeps you focused on the story as you try to figure out this mystery. And finally, we don't do spoilers here, but what's revealed as to what happens to these kids was not what I expected at all. And here I'll commend the trailers because they present us with an intriguing premise, kind of a mystery story, and they don't really reveal really much of anything. So I had no idea what to expect.
Intriguing.
And this is where I have to give the biggest praise to writer-director Zach Cregger. He gave us Barbarians a few years ago, and that's another brilliant horror movie, and he really lays out his story here. This movie is really well acted, well directed, and well paced. What doesn't work in this film, however, is while I was intrigued and interested in the way the story is told from the multiple viewpoints of the different characters, some of the characters are just not overly interesting. And their particular points of view of events is not as engaging, which means that during those times, it just feels a little drug out. Also, the movie does go along at a steady pace, building up nicely, but the ending did feel just a tiny bit rushed. Even though the movie's about 2 hours long, you could have maybe cut a little of the build-up off of one of the less interesting characters and add that time to the ending. Listen, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I do like the ending. I like the way it was wrapped up. I'm just thinking a little bit more there might have been better. And finally, this movie's been talked about for several months now, and from what I've heard from other people, friends, critics, there was fairly high expectations to this film. And, that kind of sets things up to fail. If those high expectations aren't reached, well, then people are going to look at this film and be like, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. That being said, however, with the high expectations, for me, it absolutely reached them. I very much enjoyed this film. I thought it was really just so well done. It's an excellent follow-up to Barbarians for writer-director Zach Cregger. So in Weapons, Cregger moves between several key figures in the community, winding through a tale that is riveting and unsettling. It's very satisfying. It's a very entertaining movie. It has great performances, probably some of the best I've seen this year. And it's bolstered by electrifying direction and a wonderful plot. It really lived up to the hype for me. I think it's one of the best films I've seen this year. And if you're a fan of the horror genre, I strongly advise you to see it.
That's fantastic!
Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment or a question, share this video with friends and enemies alike, and as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.